Hello, Whovians, and people who have randomly started listening to this because you're our friend. I'm Matthew.
And I'm Taylor.
We are the two dudes from Gallifrey, here with yet another season of Doctor Who.
Woohoo!
Woo!
That's right. All right, we're going to do Season 3 today. And I really want to get through some of this because when we get to the end of this season, there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about. So I'm pretty excited. First of all, let's go through some Doctor Who news. We got some big news.
Oh, yeah.
We got some big news this week.
We got the only news that matters every year. It's the only thing that matters. We've got a launch date for Season 7.
All right. I'm psyched. It's going to be September 1st.
September
1st.
Yeah.
And so what's going to happen with this podcast is we're going to try to put out the rest of the seasons in between. So we're on 3, now we got to get to 7 quickly. We're going to try to put them out as much as possible. So there'll be like 2 or 3 a week, for the next week or 2 up until the thing. And then the episode covering the first episode should be out on Friday the 7th. It'll be the Friday right after the episode airs.
Mm-hmm. So pretty much every week it'll be Friday before the next episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe we'll even do one before the first episode. It's just like, oh my god, what are we going to see?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we'll have those seasons, and then we're also going to talk about the Christmas special that just aired last Christmas. Mm-hmm. We'll have a special episode just for that, because that technically was part of Season 7.
It's going to be weird, because Season 7 is going to have several Christmas episodes. One at the beginning, one in the middle, and maybe even one at the end.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. So some other Doctor Who news. There's just some little things I saw. John Barrowman, who plays Captain Jack, he just got cast a recurring role on the show that's going to be on CW called Arrow, which I guess is based on a comic book hero. It was pretty funny because it says his character is he will play... They haven't said much about him. He's a well-dressed man who is as mysterious as he is wealthy.
Well, that's just John Barrowman. That's...
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be pretty good. It'll be good. I'm excited.
And if out there, if you guys don't follow John Barrowman, you really should, because he is very active in theater, on television. He's active with, music, and he's very into, LGBT rights, and I mean, this guy is he's fantastic, so.
Yeah. And let's go ahead. We'll start recapping the episodes now. But before we do that, let's just bring it up. This season begins the spin-off show, Torchwood.
Yeah.
So if you want to sort of kind of have a fun little thing to do, and I did this because Matt told me, hey, you need to kind of watch this. They kind of line up at the end of this season.
Yeah,
if you want to watch Season 3, you also watch Torchwood kind of at the same time. And it's a pretty good show. I like it. It's set in the same universe, which is interesting, which is pretty fun. I like when shows are kind of like that. And yeah, it's just all about this sort of ragtag crew of Torchwood, and you find out a little more about them in the finale of this season. But it's kind of fun to watch the finale, and you know what they're talking about.
Right.
He's talking about his team and all this. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's neat because you can watch Doctor Who and be like, wow, this is great, and then you can kind of watch a lot of these spin-off shows, and a lot of people don't know, there are people who watch Torchwood because they're like, oh, this could be really cool, and they have no clue that not only is this a spin-off show of Doctor Who, that the name itself is derived from the scripts from the first season of Doctor Who, characters are from the, and they think, oh, Torchwood's really cool, and then you're like, oh, hey, you should try out Doctor Who, and they go, what's that? I have no idea what you're talking about. That looks stupid. And you're like, no, you'll see. So it's really nice to have Captain Jack back in season 3 here as we go through it, to see some of the Torchwood stuff, and just to see people returning is really kind of cool.
Right. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and talk about the Christmas special for this one was The Runaway Bride. we see this right at the end of season 2. Donna Noble, who we'll meet later in season 4.
Tate.
Yeah, she's so great.
Am I bothered?
Yes, she shows up, and one thing that they do on the show also is this. It's bigger on the inside joke, like with the TARDIS,
right?
Like every time there's a new person, there's always like which it's almost a little annoying. I wish they would not do it as often. There's always like a 5-minute scene of them like, huh, what? They go outside and they go inside again, and they go outside. They're like, I can't believe it.
Well, and that's classic Who, you know.
Yeah.
It's always because people just bigger on the inside.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you want them to be surprised. I mean, it is. Right. It is surprising.
It is Doctor Who.
So the Santas are back in this episode, although they look a little different, which was kind of a clue to what happens. They're not actually the scavengers this time. They're robots being controlled. There's more, some more crazy TARDIS moving, even like a high-speed chase.
First time the TARDIS has ever been in a high-speed chase.
Yeah, it was really interesting, and I like the kids in the back seat.
They're excited.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, one of the things that they constantly show on the show or talk about is just how crazy the TARDIS is. You know, the Doctor flies the ship, and it's just flying all over the place. It's wrecking itself. You know, people are falling all over.
The TARDIS can do so many things that I'm gonna mention every time there's something interesting or new about that the TARDIS does. That's just like, oh, you can do that too. Okay. Yeah. The Doctor at one point says he can't go back on someone's personal timeline. I was like, oh, okay. Apparently, you can't do that.
Right.
You know,
rules of time.
I was like, well, yeah. He went back on Rose's timeline, which I thought was interesting. But we saw how that turned out,
right?
With all the little monsters and all that stuff.
Well, and he breaks a lot of these rules too. You can't go back in a person's timeline, but you know, we'll see throughout the season he kind of breaks some of those rules and for cheap jokes.
Yeah. Let's see. So Donna works for the MC Clemens, which is who you find out later is kind of run by Torchwood. And she's sort of been set up here.
Yeah.
The one thing that also happened. Also, one thing that the Doctor, which I noticed, he kept saying. He says David Tennant says a lot. It's always like, that's impossible. You know, like stuff he's like, you think he's seen everything,
right? Well,
right, but he's always like, that's impossible. How could this be?
Yeah. Well, he went into it in season 2, back when they were doing the 2-parter with the Beast, you know, the Devil, and he was talking to Dr. Ida Scott, and he says, you know, it's his philosophy, it's his religion. You know, what does he believe? And you know, he says the rules, as I see it, you can't come from beyond time. You know, if you said you were born, at the beginning of time or whatever, that would make sense. But beyond time doesn't make any sense to him. So even the Time Lords themselves have some sort of philosophy or rules for how the world ought to work. And it's real interesting to see that he does. He keeps everything he sees. He goes, this is impossible. You know, because it doesn't fit with what he sees the universe as. And maybe that's showing his age. Maybe he's just an old man now, and he doesn't want to necessarily see the world in a new way.
Yeah. So this one's got some more crazy Christmas stuff. It's got exploding ornaments. And everyone who was like, the tree, they remembered, oh, stay away from the tree. Let's get the Santas with their shooting instruments.
We meet Donna's mother for the first time.
Yeah, Donna's mother and a man who I would assume is Donna's father, maybe, or maybe his grandfather before they cast the guy.
No, I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be her father, because they make reference later when Donna. Spoilers: Donna shows up again later. She's my favorite, so I'm glad she does. But when she does, they make reference to her father has a heart attack at some point in time and dies. Her mother says, like, it's been so hard since your father passed or something. And you know, that's supposed. We don't see Wilfred yet.
yet. No. There's some. I love. There's one thing where like the ornaments are exploding and the man like jumps and he like it's that sort of that stock sound effect of that scream you hear and he's like "Wah!" and then he like lands in the cake. You know, It's really hilarious.
Still being funny even in the middle of a explosive tree battle. Ornaments exploding. Donna's been tricked by her fiance. We come to find out, she's been drinking these chemicals, and they're going to use her as a key. And all of a sudden, there's this really creepy spider woman who, some of the craziest acting I've ever seen of a Doctor Who villain. Just like the noises she makes, the faces she's making. Like, man, she's going for it. It's the best.
Yeah, it really is. There's a funny little running joke in this one too, where Donna keeps saying like she doesn't remember all these things that have been happening over the last couple of years.
Right.
Yeah, she's always like, "Oh, I was hungover," or like you don't remember the big spaceship over last Christmas, or you don't remember
slept in.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and that's perfect. That's classic Donna, as the joke goes, is that she's just not with it. Like she's so engulfed in her own world, she does not see.
Yeah, and then the really funny part is they get to the basement of this building, and they have to go down this hallway. So they get on the segways, and it's just this like scene of them on segways, just kind of going at the segway speed, and then they just start laughing, like they all just start cracking up because they're just the ridiculousness of it. So this creepy spider woman, she's the Empress of the Arachnos, and what happens is they go back in time to the beginning of when Earth was made, and they come to find out that all this time the core of the Earth is this spider nest, which is one thing that I kind of think is really interesting on Doctor Who when they do stuff like that, where they do stuff like, like the Earth. We think we know like the history of the Earth.
Well, we don't.
But it's like
secret history.
But we don't at all. Or like the history of how something happened. Mm-hmm. But it's like, oh well, actually it happened like this when Doctor Who was when the Doctor was back there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
A changing of history. I mean, he's a time traveler. Of course, he's involved in every aspect of our universe.
Well, yeah. There's that. There's where he changes history, but then there's also things where like we'll get to later with the Shakespeare episode, but like you find out why something was a certain way, and you're like,
right.
Oh, it was, and you're like, oh, well, okay, that's kind of a funny way for them to explain that. He brings out the extrapolator again, which I thought was funny because we were talking about that in season 1. And I'm like, oh, it is. There it is.
It's still there, man. He uses it.
And at one point, he says, okay, in this episode, he says to the Spider Woman, to the Empress, she says, where are you from, or whatever, and he says, Gallifrey. And is this the first time we've heard it in the new show?
Yeah, this is the first time we're going to hear the word Gallifrey.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Time Lord was used since the very first episode, though it was a little hidden. But
they haven't talked about his home world yet.
Well, yeah, we for the new show, we have not seen anything of this new of his home world in this new show. So it's really kind of interesting. They developed his It's like, well, maybe since he lost Rose, he realizes okay, there's no point in hiding this anymore. I gotta be who I am. I gotta keep moving forward. So maybe a part of that was loss.
And so he drowns all the babies all the spiders.
Baby spiders.
And really, he's just just the anger on him. And Donna even says, "You can stop now."
Right.
Like you can tell he's just hurt from after Rose is gone now.
Very much so. She makes him better from the Time War, and then suddenly he loses her. And how do you respond to that? How do you deal with that much tragedy? I said it at the beginning of the second season that once we got to Tennant, it's like he was a new person. It's like he's young again, and he sees the world, for the first time, and everything feels new and open for him because, you know, Rose makes him better, and then by the end of the first season, he has this traumatic loss, and it hurts. And now he's sort of like this, not middle-aged, but he's an adult now. You know, this is the kind of, he sees the world more as someone who knows that pain exists. And it's interesting to see that that's kind of how he approaches most of this season.
Yeah. So at the end, he saves the day, but Donna decides not to come with him. You know, he tries to get her to come with him. He needs a new companion. And so more things that the TARDIS can do. Apparently the TARDIS can make it snow. Mm-hmm. And one interesting thing was it didn't fade out this time. It shoots up into space. Yeah. Which was really interesting. I was like, oh, it's got some tricks up its sleeve.
Right.
It can be fancy.
Yeah. It doesn't have to just disappear. I mean,
yeah, exactly. It can shoot up into, yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's move on to the first episode of the season, Smith and Jones. We meet Martha Jones.
Yay, Martha Jones.
Yeah, I liked Martha Jones too. One interesting thing about her is she's the same actress as in the finale of season 2,
right?
Which I had noticed the first time we watched it, and we talked about it last week.
That's a big thing.
I see how she got. Yeah, I see how she got the job.
Well, and it's neat. This is an episode that really illustrates what we were just talking about with the Doctor sort of breaking rules of time. You know, you see him in the beginning of the episode, right up to her before she's even met him, and take off his tie and say, "See," and then walk away. And then it's a joke you don't get till the end of the episode when you go, "Oh, there you go, that was it. That's what we were waiting for." You know, it really pays off. But that's the Doctor messing around and saying, you know, I can totally do what I want as long as it's a cheap joke, as long as it's a cheap gag.
One thing I noticed that was interesting that he said was there's a part where he's in the hospital bed and Martha goes, "Oh, that's interesting. Oh, yeah, that was funny earlier with the tie out." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And she says, "What? Do you have like a brother or something?" And he says something along the lines of, "Well, not anymore." Yeah. Whatever. What was that about? Did he ever have a brother? Or?
No. I mean, okay. That's... Well, and he's referencing, you know, the death of the Time Lords, but maybe he did. You know, it's like that line from first season where the one Doctor says, you know, before this war I was a father and a grandfather, and you know, now I'm neither. And, you know, he says, yeah, I know the feeling. And she's like, wow, he really did have family. And he's lost him.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess they didn't really talk about him a lot. I know all I read so far was they said he had a granddaughter or something, and she showed up at one point. But other than that, they really never... Yeah. Oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah. But they never really talked about the rest of his family or anything. Okay, so the show looks better, I think. Like, budget... Oh, like, this episode I was watching and I go, just the camera angles and just the way everything looks is all clean and nice and like just really like I really enjoyed the way they sort of they got more money, I suppose.
Well, yeah, and I think they really did. They had new cameras, they had new film quality. You can see the difference in film quality, and you'll see it going forward because once again, when we get to season 4, it's like it's even better.
Yeah. Okay, so the hospital they're in, it gets it rains upside down, and then they get up to the moon. The Jadoon. I wanted to ask, are they in the old show?
Nope. New villains.
No, they're new. They're new. I love them. I love them. They're awesome.
Toe.
Yeah, exactly. I love it.
Motherfucker, Nabba Joe.
Yeah. Oh man, that just. I mean. One thing Doctor Who villains, they have to have an interesting either catchphrase or a way they talk, and then you know they just have to be outlandishly, ridiculously looking. And I love them; they're the best.
Well, space rhinos.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, how can you not love space rhinos?
Yeah. So they're looking for this lady who sucks the blood out of people with a straw, which was funny, and. he breaks his sonic screwdriver, which I had forgotten this, and it surprised me. I forgot. He uses it on the radiation machine, and it kind of destroys it. So he doesn't have a sonic screwdriver for a moment. And one thing they did in the show, which is really funny, is whenever they're like running and like he turns around and he locks the door, it always like closes up on him sonic screwdriving the lock, you know, and then they run away. Well, he didn't have a sonic screwdriver, so they're running, and then it closes up on him just like turning the lock with his hand.
I never noticed that.
It was really funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really hilarious. So anyway, they save the day. As always, and there's a couple things that were interesting in this that sort of go over the whole season. There, you hear about this Mr. Saxon.
Yeah, at the end there, orders from Mr. Saxon, open fire.
Right. Yeah, he's going to be the overarching theme here in this one. Yeah, you're going to hear his name a lot, pretty much in every episode, or close to almost every episode.
Love the Saxon.
Or at least, every episode where they're in the present day, where there's going to be a couple. Well, there's a lot of them in this season. And then so Martha Jones comes along with him, and she's sort of replacing Rose at this point. That's kind of her only purpose. Yeah, for the Doctor.
Right.
He just needs somebody. He sort of. Donna said, I think you need somebody to stop you.
Well, he does.
Yeah, and he does. He definitely does. And so she comes with him. The first place they go in the next episode, the Shakespeare Code, which I thought was the funniest sort of play on words of the Da Vinci Code, which was good. This one's got some creepy witches. And a dreamy-looking Shakespeare. Like, why is he...
Yeah.
I've seen pictures of Shakespeare. He does not look, all that broodingly handsome. Yeah,
he's the it's the Kiefer Sutherland of Shakespeare's.
Yeah, exactly. So one thing that was interesting about this episode is the whole time it looked like it was all this sort of magic was going on with these witches and everything, and then all this magic is sort of explained away through science.
Well, and that's a big thing of Doctor Who, right? I mean,
yeah.
I hate being the guy in these podcasts that's always like, oh, that's also Doctor Who because this is Doctor Who, and I'm like, but no, it's the Doctor doesn't believe in ridiculousness. There's always a reason for what's going on, and it's really neat to see, that again, Shakespeare and magic. That's really cool,
Yeah.
But no, they're aliens once again, just aliens.
So one thing I was mentioning earlier, the historical events and facts being all part of this plan. So like the Globe Theater was built the certain way because it would help them with their spell or whatever, which I was like, okay, so that's one thing Doctor Who does that I thought was really interesting. And kind of funny that it's like, oh, okay, that's good. That's one way to sort of explain away certain things. So these witches turn out to be these. They're called Carianites, and they use these sort of words or sort of where they get their power from. So Shakespeare, they get him to write sort of a spell into one of his plays. And
Love Labor's Wine.
Right.
The missing play.
Exactly, which is probably kind of, that's another way they explain away why this was never released. But they, so then the actors say the words and the spell starts happening, and they're sort of being freed from their eternal imprisonment on Earth. But then Shakespeare uses his gift of wordplay to sort of trap them, and then with a little help from Martha, he says "Expelliarmus" at the end.
That's a good old J.K.
And then he traps them in a crystal ball, and he keeps it in the TARDIS. And I was like, oh, that's funny, like Ghostbusters or something.
Right. Well, we see them again next season.
No, I was going to bring that up when we got there, but
sorry.
No, that's fine.
I'm excited.
I know. They I was wondering, are there any other bad guys trapped on the TARDIS or something?
Well, in the old show, too, like, the Cybermen might walk into the TARDIS and walk off, somewhere, and then you won't see them again until, like, 2 episodes later. And they come walking out, and everyone's like, oh, no, Cybermen! Where did they come from? And the Doctor will be like, they were trapped.
Yeah. And then, so the next episode is Gridlock. And one thing I read that was interesting about Gridlock is it's sort of this... it's the end of this trilogy of episodes. Because they're all about this new Earth. You have the end of the world is the first one. And then New Earth would be the second one. And then this would be the third one. And they all have to do with, there's the cats...
right.
And sort of you have Cassandra in the first 2, but they're they all are sort of linked. So I thought that was pretty neat. That they sort of the fans that sort of group these together. It's like, oh, these are kind of this end. It's the end of this trilogy of this,
right?
Because they don't visit this new Earth again.
It's sort of the Face of Bo trilogy too.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it is. You're right. Yeah, that is what links them all together. Is the Face of Bo? He's all through. I liked all the different cars, all the people.
I love this idea that people are just perpetually stuck on a motorway. Like...
stuck in traffic, yeah.
Yeah, they live their whole lives in a car. And I'm just like, well, that's really a good idea. That's a unique way to see modern pollution and our lives. We're always on the run and everything. But it's just a neat idea that, people would be born, live, and die in a car. Never really know the world.
Yeah, one thing I like about these episodes, about Doctor Who, is... there's some the people who write the show, they have some great ideas just for stuff that'll happen in the future and just things I think they're really, really neat. Okay, so in this episode, he describes Gallifrey. He says orange sky, red grass, all this stuff.
Very different than what it looked like before.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask.
You have to remember, the old show was filmed on a budget, like a really tight budget that almost didn't exist.
Right.
So the big joke was every alien planet somehow managed to look just like the rock quarry that was near the filming studios. Like, it's just a rocky planet because, they had to go somewhere to film, and they could go there and film. So anytime we've ever seen Gallifrey in the past, everything's been very, Roman Senate type atmosphere in the interior, but then if you ever go outside, it's just this sort of rocky, barren existence. So I guess hearing him talk about Gallifrey this way is very new, but I think it adds something to Doctor Who. I think it really changes kind of the feel of who the Time Lords are, and that there is this passion, this love for the place that they were born in.
And you could always say that he's describing it from the last time he saw it, which they could have, updated some things before, within the years or something like that.
Well, and he could also just be remembering it from his childhood. It's always possible that's when he was young,
Yeah. So the Face of Bo is back in this one.
The Face of Bo.
Yeah, he's sort of this is it goes back to season 2 where he had a message for him. And so this is where he's going to give him this message. So he gets his sonic screwdriver back from, it was destroyed. I forgot from earlier, but he gets a new one, which is funny because they do that again later.
Well, he built it.
Yeah. And one thing that was funny was he was going from car to car. He kept putting the sonic. He would use the sonic screwdriver to open the top of the car. And then to open the bottom when he would go down to the next level.
Right.
And he kept putting it back in his coat pocket. And I'm like, just keep it out. Because he went down to 20 cars. And every time he would put it back in his pocket, then he'd take it back out again.
He's a very proper gentleman.
He sure is. So there's these crab people at the bottom of the motorway. And so if you happen to go down there, they're feeding off the smog.
They'll eat you.
They'll eat you. So he comes to find out that the people in New Earth, this is years after the cat lady nurses, the people in New Earth, they sort of got addicted to these drugs. And this Bliss one, something went wrong and there was a virus and it killed everybody.
Happy.
Right, exactly. So So the face of boat trapped everybody in the motorway down below to save them. So the Doctor sort of opens it up and lets all the people, go and be free. And the face of boat uses his last strength to sort of help him out there.
And, it's good to note, too, with the face of boat, Doctor Who constantly reminds us that our actions have grave consequences. They are always saying stuff how the Doctor doesn't stay to clean up. He runs away right away so we can get out. And, that proves that the Doctor, he does change everything, but then he doesn't want to accept the consequences of it. He doesn't want to see what the response is. Well, the face of boat plays right into that. He does a very doctor-y thing by saving everybody, and then, years later letting him go. But just think, all those people born, living, and dying down there in the motorway was all because the face of Bo closed them down there. And that's kind of harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah. That he's not exactly a kind person for doing that. He just needed to do something to save people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was kind of what's the lesser of two evils here? Mm-hmm. You'd have everybody die, or trap these people down there for who knows how long.
Right.
So before he dies, his final message is, "You are not alone." Which,
cryptic.
Yes, it's a big thing. And that sort of ties into the whole overarching theme here. The next episode,
Daleks in Manhattan.
Daleks in Manhattan. I'll let you watch this one.
Oh, I love these two. The Daleks are just the best villains ever. And this season they were really sort of relegated to comedic relief.
Yeah.
You tell so many Dalek stories, and eventually you've told them all. And up until now, just about every Doctor had faced the Daleks in one form or another. And you get to these 2 episodes now. If you remember, the Daleks were sucked back into the void at the end of season 2, and the Cult of Skaro basically emergency time teleports. And what you get is the last 4 Daleks in the universe trying to change human history by altering who they are. And the one Dalek that sees, that is wrong and wants to be pure Dalek. And of course, by the end of these 2, that Dalek, once again, temporal time ports, in a very lackluster performance by David Tennant. Probably the only time I've ever been disappointed in him as the Doctor is he sort of goes, no, and then, oh, well, I missed him. Get him next time.
Yeah.
You just sort of really? You're not going to take this pretty hard? The last Dalek once again escapes? Couple things.
I like the pig.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I like the pig creatures in this one.
The pig. Oh.
They were pretty amusing.
I love Tallulah.
It reminded me... Yeah, she was good too. And, it reminded me of the pig in the spacesuit from the...
Similar themes, man.
Yeah.
Well,
season 1.
A couple things to note in these episodes that I really love. This is, unless I'm totally mistaken, this is the first time in the new series that the Doctor visits America. No, wait, he does in Dalek in the first season. We don't really see that it's America. It's Utah. It's underground. But this is the first time we see him in America. That's kind of cool. I mean, I live here in America. I live in Missouri, and I don't live in London. I don't live in Cardiff. And while those would be fantastic places to visit, and I love seeing them week after week in Doctor Who, it's cool. Hey, he showed up in my country. He came over here to play.
Yeah, exactly.
That was really neat. The other thing too is the very famous person now, I guess, it's one of his first earliest roles, the new Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield. Playing a very young, geeky, with the best accent ever, Southerner.
Yeah, he does a good job. He's a great actor. I mean, I love Spider-Man. He was great in Spider-Man.
He's great in The Social Network.
Yeah. And he's, I guess, he was good in this. I remember seeing him and I go, oh yeah, I know that guy. So,
so a couple things to note.
The human Dalek hybrid was, when Dalek, the main one, the black one.
Yeah.
I don't remember his name. When he changed it this Dalek Khan, that's right. He changed it to this sort of he had a human body, but then a weird head with a brain. Well,
that's kind of what the Daleks, when they show you in Dalek,
look like inside.
they're these Krang looking creatures.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god, Krang was a Dalek. It never even occurred to me.
Exterminate the turtles.
Shredder. Elevate.
So again, the Daleks have jokes in this one. They were pretty. I mean, the Daleks. I mean, they're just funny already. But when they like tell a joke, or sometimes I almost want another Dalek to be like, "Oh snap," you know, because there's a part where there's like there should be a Dalek floating in the background. He's like, "Oh snap," because there's a part where they go. They're like, you asked us to imagine. We imagined your irrelevance. And I saw them went, oh, snap.
You go, girl.
Yeah.
Daleks win at throwdown.
Yes, you have been burned.
You have been burned.
So at the end of this episode, there's only one left.
And he escapes.
Only one. And he escapes. So I'm sure we'll see him later.
No, that's it. The Daleks are done.
No, he's gonna go live somewhere. No. Okay, so the next episode.
Yeah, moving on.
Unless you have, next episode, the Lazarus experiment. They go back to the present.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 10 hours later, which is better than the first time they did this, where he was a year late.
Yeah.
And Rose was like in trouble for being gone so long.
He's learning.
Yes, he did very well.
He's a better driver.
The person who plays Lazarus, I thought was interesting. It's the guy who plays Sherlock's brother on Sherlock. If you guys ever watch that show, that's a good one.
He's also a writer on the show.
Oh, that's cool. I did not know that.
He co-produced and co-wrote Sherlock, and then he's also a writer on Doctor Who. Cannot for the life of me remember what his first episode was. He said checking out wikipedia.org.
Well, while you're doing that, let me just say I cannot stand the mom. Martha's mom.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's always like, and I know she's just doing what she thinks is right, but it's like the whole, she's just screwing up big time, and you're just like, oh, you're like, why are you doing this?
She has no idea.
Yeah.
Ooh, I found it. Mark Gatiss. His name is Mark Gatiss. Okay. He wrote The Idiot's Lantern from season 2. What did he write in season? And he wrote The Unquiet Dead. He wrote the from season 1, Charles Dickens episode.
Yeah.
Continue.
So, So he's got this machine that makes you young again, but for some reason it also turns you into a scorpion man, which is no good.
It happens. Unlocked his potential human DNA. That's what he calls it. That's what the doctor calls it.
And his research is funded by Mr. Saxon, which you hear that name again.
Saxon.
They did that. That's kind of neat. And at the end of this, he does this, or not the end, but it's like near the end. He does this thing where they get inside the chamber and he reverses the polarity, so like everything outside is affected by it. And it reminded me of Superman 2.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen the end of Superman where he gets in the thing and he turns it on?
Right.
And they think he's going to lose his powers, and he makes everybody else lose theirs.
Very famous comic book moment too.
Yeah. The next episode. Oh, well, do you have anything else for this one?
Oh, for the Lazarus experiment. It's Martha's family. This whole season, the Doctor and Martha basically run through time and space, and really only a couple of days pass by in the present time. Once again, the Doctor can't go back on someone's timeline. So if he leaves and runs around time and space and comes back the minute after he left, that's great. But if he comes back the next day, he can't just rewind time and go backwards, which is a very big point, actually. Not just this season, but going into season 5. You can't. Once he affects you, once he's in your life, you can't undo that. And so it's almost like, yeah, he's better than he was with Rose. Rose, it was a whole year. And now he's thinking, okay, with this, well, we'll go back 10 hours later. We'll go back the next day. It's no big deal. And it ends up being a very big deal because he wasn't there. So much stuff was happening in the background. And that all has to do with Mr. Saxon. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, because they're running around, the things they're dealing with, the things they're going through is just leading them right to a very terrible end. So that's all I had.
Yeah. Okay, so the next episode is 42, which is a lost number, so it was kind of fun to see that there. if anybody knows what I'm talking about. This one was okay. It was a little familiar. It was a little too close to the Satan Pit, kind of. And
yeah.
There was a crew, and they were in space. And the Doctor and Martha get separated from the TARDIS. It was all a little similar,
right?
But and there was some, of course, it was obviously wasn't the same. They were heading towards a sun, or a star, and they had to get through this pop quiz through these doors to get through, which I thought was funny. I was like, who designed this thing?
Obviously, people who really love Quiz Show.
Yes, so. Obviously. At the end, you come to find out that this star was a living being, and it just wanted its life force back, so they ejected the fuel or whatever. Which I thought was interesting because I think on the show they do a lot of interesting things where something turns out to be like a living creature.
Yeah,
that you wouldn't think. Yeah, I can't think of an example, but some kind of goo, and the Doctor's like, oh no, it's like this is a human, this is a creature, it's got a life, right, and whatever.
Well, and those are the episodes that generally there isn't a villain. You think you're fooled. You think it's something. You think it's a thing, and you think it's whatever. And then you get to the end, and you're like, oh, okay, so the star was alive, and everything's fine now that the Doctor, has helped.
Uh-huh.
Or season 5 has a perfect example, The Beast Below, and you just sort of get to the end, and you're like, oh, it's not a villain. It's not a monster. And those are the episodes where it's really, we're the monsters because we didn't see what was really happening.
Yeah.
And then there are Daleks.
Yeah, and then there are the obvious villains. At the end of this one, you find out that Martha's mom has sort of been in contact with Mr. Saxon's been in contact with her, trying to get to Martha's kind of, and telling the mom that the Doctor is just not safe and all this stuff. So there he pops up again.
Ooh, who could Mr. Saxon be, and why does he know about the Doctor?
I know. Yeah, I mean, the first time I watched this, I was like, what? I could see the pattern. I was like, okay. I would say, I think I found the theme for this season. I definitely figured it out. The next one...
This was a pretty easy one. It's a little heavy-handed.
Yeah, the next one is Human Nature, which I watched this one because I really enjoyed it the first time, and I wanted to watch it again. The first time I watched this, at the beginning, I was like, what is going on? They're teaching at a school... The Doctor's teaching at this school... in 1913, and Martha's like his servant, and he's saying he's having these dreams that he's this man called the Doctor, and it's just like, what's going on? And then they explain it, and I thought it was really cool. It was a really cool idea.
Yeah.
That he sort of implants his consciousness into this, or his DNA or whatever, into this watch, and makes himself human.
Turns himself human, yeah.
Yeah. And he sort of...
Which brings up actually a really good point. He mentions that every TARDIS has this, every Time Lord has this, they can do it once. And so the question is, does it always turn them human, or can it turn them into anything they want?
Yeah. Well, this was another thing. The TARDIS can just do anything, like this thing comes down from this helmet comes down from the ceiling. It's just got so many like buttons and levers and just things that just,
it has a lot of buttons. You're right.
That's the thing is they could just pretty much have it do anything. You know, he could have like a coffee machine that comes down or something. You know, they could just make up anything that it could do, which is that sort of is limitless for the show, which is great. But I think it's just so silly that there's so many things that it does. He ends up falling in love. He's in his human form. He's John Smith. He doesn't know he's the Doctor, and he ends up falling in love with the woman who she's in Spaced, which is kind of a funny British show.
Oh yeah,
I'd recommend watching it on Netflix.
Well, her and
Simon
her
Pegg.
opposite of what's his name? Yeah,
Simon,
who's in season one?
Yeah. So that's a good show. I'd recommend that. It's only a couple seasons long, so it's
Spaced is really good.
Yeah, Spaced.
Spaced is really good.
And so basically, he's done this because they're running from the family, and the family ends up they come to Earth and they sort of find him, and they kill these people and they sort of use their bodies. And this one guy has the creepiest face I've ever seen.
Oh my god!
His name is Bane.
He does.
Just his mouth is so crooked, like it just creeps up, and just his face. I'll post a picture. Actually,
he was so good at that part.
He was super good, and I found a GIF of him, like his face, and he's like turning to the camera. I'll post it on the Facebook page. It's really hilarious.
Do you know that actor was actually he was in the running to become Doctor Who after David Tennant?
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah. I didn't know that.
He was one of the few people they were seriously considering.
Yeah.
He would have been good at it.
He would have been very good. He's a great actor. Really pulled Creepy off, that's for sure. So, The Family of Blood is the second episode. It's funny because here's creepy children once again. One of the people they get is this little girl with a balloon. She's always holding a balloon. But she's
the one red balloon.
Yeah.
Is creepy.
Yeah, but she's creepy. And then there's this other kid, Tim, and he has these visions. I guess he's got some sort of telepathy going on where he kind of sees the future.
Right.
Or sort of certain things sort of call out to him, and he figures it out. And he takes the watch because it sort of talks to him, it's the Doctor inside talking to Tim. One thing I really liked about this episode, and it was really different from what I thought it was going to be. I thought, oh, okay, so he doesn't know he's the Doctor. We'll see him. It'll be really funny. He'll be a school teacher, and he's pretending to be this person. And then they'll open the watch, and it'll be da-da-da, I'm the Doctor. But it was really sad when John Smith realized that his whole life was a lie. And just the acting by David Tennant here. It was so... I had no idea it was going to go in this direction of him just... he says... Yeah, he says...
Top notch.
Yeah, really great. He says, John Smith, that's all I want to be, my life. I want to be John Smith. I want to be John Smith. And he's just sort of having this breakdown. And he says, my whole life is a lie. It's just a story, Just really interesting that this story made up for him by the TARDIS that gives him a story. This character of John Smith, he sort of can have this realization and this sadness. Really different from what I thought.
Well, isn't that what he always wanted though? Is a life just like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
The Doctor always wanted to just settle down and.
And it was just so different from what I thought. I thought it was just going to be, oh no, he's not the Doctor, but then he will be. It was like this whole battle of where should he change or not, and if the guy was going to do it or not. Which I really liked that whole aspect of the story. And it's very true to the human condition. Yeah,
David Tennant blows
emotional.
you away in that part.
So him and the nurse, I can't remember her name, but they touch the watch, and the Doctor sort of gives them this view of sort of the life they would have together, which I thought was sweet. And then so then he becomes a doctor again, and he decides, he has to. The family is sort of destroying this village and looking for him. So he becomes a doctor again, and he's just, at the end of this, he's just so cruel to the villains in this. The things he does to them, which I thought he was getting a little bit better, after losing Rose. He had Martha, and she was sort of helping him get over that. But then at the end of this, I was like, no, he is not over it. He ties the one guy up in chains. He traps the girl in a mirror. Traps the other girl, the lady, in a.
No more second chances, man. He tells you what kind of guy he is at the very beginning.
Yeah, exactly. So, all around a solid two-parter. Just a really great episode. And he asked the lady, the nurse, to come along with him, and she says no. And I just feel bad for Martha in this season. I mean, she sort of gets the attention she wants from him close to the end a little bit, but she really just loves him, and he couldn't care less, really, because he's got Rose on his brain.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and he doesn't fall in love often, and when he does, that's something important. And Martha's a good friend, but she just can't fill that void.
Yeah.
She can't fill the void. It's filled with Daleks and Cybermen.
Oh. Okay.
So then next up we got Blink, written by Stephen Moffat. Big round of applause for one of the best episodes of Doctor Who of all time.
Seriously, I think this is probably my favorite episode. Phenomenal.
By far and wide, it's critically acclaimed, yeah.
Yeah, it's so good.
It introduces an incredible villain, a really good monster for the Doctor Who mythos, which are the Weeping Angels. Basically, this is one of those episodes, just like my favorite episode from Season 2, Love and Monsters, where the Doctor's not really in it all that much.
Yeah,
this is about Sally Sparrow.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's that interesting format where, it's he's not in it pretty much almost at all.
Right.
I mean, he's in a little more.
Well, and it's taken to the nth degree, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so you got this episode where Sally Sparrow, she's in this abandoned house taking pictures when she realizes there's a message for her on the wall from the Doctor, and as she goes back to investigate later with her best friend disappears. She goes to the police to report it, and she finds she sees the TARDIS down there. The guy disappears that she liked, the detective, and so she goes and she meets the guy again because he traveled through time, basically went back in time, and he had to spend his whole life getting ready for this moment. Mm-hmm. And he dies, and so she goes back to the house. Anyway, long story short, they have to get to the TARDIS with the key. The TARDIS is in the basement of the house. The Weeping Angels cannot move when you look at them. They're quantum locked. So as long as you look at them, they can't move. But as soon as you blink, they can move faster than you could possibly imagine. Mm-hmm. Therefore, they can't blink. They have to just stare at it. Really clever dialogue between the Doctor and Sally as basically the Doctor puts together these DVD extras, this video that you can watch. And he's just, it's brilliant. He's responding to a conversation they're having, which someone's writing down that she gives to him later at the end of the episode. Yeah. So, they're having a conversation.
Which is one thing I really love about time travel storylines when they do stuff like this. It's sort of this, it's kind of this paradox thing where it's like, well, where did it start? So it's like, he's got the notes to have the conversation that she gives to him later, and which he uses for her to have the conversation, which the guy writes down, which he gives to him later. It just kind of keeps going in a circle. They do this on Lost, they do this on Lost, where there's a compass that gets passed around. One guy goes into the past, and he gives the compass to the other guy, and then the guy gives it to the guy in the future. And so it just sort of gets passed around. And so it's like, well, where did it start? So I sort of love those kind of really cool. That's one reason I really love this episode is sort of the time travel thing. Things that just like this is all happening really fast for her, but it happens slowly for the guy, the police officer who she
right.
And so just some really cool. Like this episode was just so cool, and I mean, really, yeah. I mean, it's my favorite.
It does raise some questions though about the time travel stuff, and like it really kind of makes you think, because you think about it. The Doctor's trapped in 1963 or 1969, so the detective gets sent back in time, and the Doctor talks to the detective and convinces him to spend his whole life getting into publishing. So, so many years later, this old man is dying in a hospital, and he gives her the information that allows her to go send the TARDIS back to the Doctor. Where's the Doctor? Wouldn't he have lived all those years as well and gotten there? So once again, it shows you the Doctor doesn't follow the same rules, He breaks the rules of time. Other people have to travel through it. He doesn't have to.
Yeah.
He gets out of it.
Yeah, well...
but I really love this episode.
Yeah. One thing that was interesting that I wanted to ask you about is the police officer, Shipton, he makes a joke. Well, I don't know if it's a joke or not. He says, she asked what's a police box? He's like, oh, they used to have them. They don't have them anymore. He's like, this one, the windows are the wrong size. Like, is that a joke or something? Like an inside joke about the... Like fans were
not that I know.
They were always complaining about. I mean, it doesn't look like a realistic time police box or whatever. I didn't know if that was a.
Well, and it's close. I mean, it looks very similar.
Yeah.
I think they were all different. These were built locally by police and then put all over the place to act both as an emergency phone and as an actual prison. You would lock you'd lock a criminal up in there until help could arrive. So. It's as accurate as anything's going to be about it, but obviously it has a light on the top. Obviously, it hums, true story. But more importantly, this version of it looks a lot more like sort of the versions of it that the character, like the Fifth Doctor, would ride around in, or even the First Doctor minus a couple things. Or the Second Doctor, probably more accurately. But I don't know. It probably doesn't look exactly like old police boxes, so they were probably commenting, well, it is a little different,
Yeah.
It's the TARDIS. For those of you who have never seen the old show, real quickly here, an explanation as to why the TARDIS looks like this. The TARDIS has a chameleon circuit. It's built, or it's designed to blend in with its environment. Wherever it lands, no matter where it lands, it's supposed to scan the environment, find the most plausible disguise possible, and change itself into that disguise. But from the first episode of the old show, the circuit was broken. It landed in a 1963 junkyard, basically, in London, and it took the form of a police box. So that way, people would be like, oh, it's a police box. It's sitting in a junkyard. Okay, police probably go in there and put criminals in there. And it just made sense for it to be like that. And then when it took off in that first episode, which was very unexpected when it did, the circuit was broke somehow. And it just remained this blue box traveling through time and space. The Doctor explains a couple times that he could fix it if he wanted to. But why? It's classic. It's vintage.
Yeah.
So likely it wasn't actually exactly like a police box. It was meant to fit in, but it probably, just didn't get all the details right. But it was good enough. It was close enough for the time.
The one thing too about this episode, the very end of it, did they just do this to make us scared of statues forever? I mean, seriously. They just replay what the Doctor says while showing all these statues, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm never gonna not look at a statue again in my life.
Well, and that's such a good point, actually. It's just sort of like a ha-ha kind of moment.
Yeah.
One more thing about this episode, and we can move on to the finale, the 3-part finale here. The creepiest moment of this episode comes at the end of that conversation between the Doctor and Sally, where all of a sudden he goes, and that's all I've got. When he does that moment where he recognizes there's no more conversation to be had, man, my skin crawls.
Yeah.
That is the scariest moment in Doctor Who, because you know why.
Yeah.
And they don't see it yet.
Or he's like, there's a part where the guy blinks, he like looks away and looks back really fast, and the thing's like right in front of his face.
Right.
That was creepy too. Yeah. And they just have creepy faces. Yeah. I mean,
they do.
That helps add to the creepiness. So
right on.
We'll move on to Utopia.
End of the universe.
Yes, they go to the end of the universe. First of all, they go to Cardiff to fuel up, and Captain Jack runs, and the Doctor sees him on the TV.
He does.
Yeah, he runs. And here's the thing: if you're watching Torchwood, at the end of the season of Torchwood, the first season, throughout the whole season, he has the hand in the jar of torch, and they always like, what's with the hand? He's like, I'm just, holding onto it, whatever he says. And at the end of this one, he hears the TARDIS, at the end of the season, he hears the TARDIS noise and he runs off. So then this picks up like right there, and you see him running, and he's like, Doctor! And the Doctor sees him on the TV and sort of like, well, we're out of here. And he
tries to book it.
Yeah, he takes it, and Jack holds on. And I guess the TARDIS tries to shake him off by traveling to the end of the universe.
Yep, pretty much.
Which they explained later. I was like, why did they end up there? But then they explained it, so.
Quick summary of the episode. End of the universe, mankind is being called far away from a place called Utopia. So those that are left of mankind who are fleeing from something called the future kind, just what people will eventually turn into as the darkness closes around what's left of the universe, stars go out, so mankind's trying to escape, and it's all being led by a guy by the name of Professor Yana, played by the wonderful Sir Derek Jacobi, and the Doctor and Martha and Jack sort of get caught up in this, trying to help them escape and rebuild this unit that'll allow them to get out of there. Only they find out far too late that Professor Yana is
the Master.
The Master!
Which I was like...
the oldest.
Yes, it's from the old show, which I didn't know at first. And I was like, that is got to be the best name for a villain I've ever heard. It's pretty simple. It's classy. It's the Master, which is just hilarious. But real quick, a couple things just in the middle of this episode. His assistant who says Chad, and then at the end of it just says though for every sentence. That was pretty amusing. They had the Doctor's hand from the Christmas episode 2 seasons back, where he chops his hand off. That was kind of interesting.
Doctor Detector, yeah.
And the before he turns into the Master, he's always talking about, and they do this in the next couple episodes too. He's talking about the drums in his head, and he says he's had these drums all his life. Is this a new thing, or did they ever reference drums in his head in the old show?
No, it's definitely a new thing. Here's the thing. With the old show, the Master was very much so sort of a Professor Moriarty to the Doctor Sherlock Holmes. There wasn't a lot of physical fighting. As the show went on, the first actor to play the Master ended up dying in a car accident. And he was still the Master. He was playing parts. He was the Master for most of the third Doctor, and going into the fourth Doctor, I suppose. But he died, Robert Delgado. And when they wanted to bring the Master back, they figured, well, the best way to do it is, the Master's a Time Lord. He can regenerate. So why not make the Master take someone else's form, but make it a character you will meet? So the second guy to play him, Anthony Isles, he was actually the father of a character named Nissa, and the Master ends up killing him and taking his form, basically. So Nyssa travels with the Doctor, so it's sort of the visage of her father, is this bad guy. And once he becomes that version of the Master, he becomes a lot more active, a lot more, Mwahaha, I'll defeat you, Doctor! And, that sort of thing. Anyway, the end of the actual last episode of the old show is a Master episode, in which he has found this other world from, I guess, I don't know, another dimension or whatever, of people that are cat people. And he's trying to bring them to the Earth. And he actually gains the powers of the cat people, and he gets these slits for eyes and stuff. And the Doctor ends up leaving him there and, escapes or whatnot. But he shows up again in the movie in 1996, and what happens in the movie is he dies. He gets thrown into the TARDIS itself, and the TARDIS eats him, basically.
How?
Yeah, nom, Master.
Yeah.
So he's dead. But they do reference this in the next couple episodes, as we'll talk about. But, the Time Lords brought him back.
He was resurrected.
The perfect warrior for a time war. And it's since he was brought back that all of this stuff with the drums starts happening. Now, one would argue that it could have been happening the whole time. Because of the circumstances of what's happening, which we won't talk about until we get there, which is later, because of the circumstances of what's happening, this wouldn't have started until he was brought back from the Time War anyway. This wouldn't have happened until the Time War began because of events that we'll talk about later. So it's possible when he's resurrected, when he's brought back, because of the things that are going to happen, that's what causes all of this to actually start in his life. As if the other stuff, he lived his life and it never happened, but now sort of going back and rewriting his history.
I think I know what you're talking about, what we'll talk about, so I can kind of see what you're saying.
Well, and I'm sorry, one more thing about that. Professor Yana says his whole life, okay? And when Yana's talking about he washed up as just a boy, naked on the shores of somewhere, in the universe. And so, obviously, when the Master ran away from the Time War, he regenerated into a young boy. He had left the Time War. And that's when he starts hearing the drums. Even though he doesn't tell the story of when he's on Gallifrey.
He looks into the untempered schism.
Yeah. That's when it all begins, but that doesn't have to be where the drums become important to him. It wasn't until he left the Time War that it starts being a part of his life. And Yana even says, my whole life, it's happened. So since he left the Time War, that drum beat's been there. And it's just been getting bigger and bigger as the older he gets.
So, interesting thing, Yana is an acronym for You Are Not Alone, which I thought, did he name him that, or is that just a happy coincidence? Or what? He's like, oh, I know, right. I'll name myself You Are Not Alone. They did say that he did this to himself to hide from the Time Lords. He used the thing that the Doctor did with the watch. One thing was interesting, and we talked about this last week. When the Doctor when the Master regenerates, there's this effect that we talked about, where it's the time vortex effect that we talked about. The Doctor has this effect now when he regenerates, and we think this is because of the time vortex that he, but now we see the Master do it. So what does this mean?
Well, and remember I said there are other factors that kind of lead to maybe this isn't normal regeneration. In the old show, the Master had used up all of his lives, and he was trying to steal them from other people. He wanted to kill the Doctor and steal the Doctor's lives, remaining regenerations, which apparently Time Lords could do. And that's a big thing about the Master, is he's always looking to steal his next life. So in the movie, in 96, that's kind of, they open with that, is that the Master had used up all his lives, he was put on trial, he was, to be executed, And he escapes, of course, and he steals another life, and that's him and the Doctor fight. But then he's eaten by the TARDIS and he's dead. When he's resurrected for the Time War, do they have the power to resurrect him and give him all his lives back? Would they want to give him all his lives back? So it's possible he was resurrected and he was him. It was the Master and his first life. And he uses the watch, and he regenerates and turns himself into a boy. So now you've got his second regeneration is Yana. His third regeneration when he turns into Sims. So his third regeneration could be John Sims. It's possible that the Master, as most Time Lords do, have a better competency at the whole regeneration. So it's like he might have just physically forced himself to regenerate. And because the only source of regeneration left would have come from the Doctor, because he had the time vortex in him, and that's what jump-started him and let him regenerate again, that maybe the Master was pulling on the same energy whether he looked into the time vortex or not. He was inside the TARDIS when he does it, so he could have been pulling on that. Also, it's highly possible this is just a really cool effect that they wanted to make the same for every Time Lord going forward, so we're just going to see this effect from now on. So I don't know.
One thing this just came to me. You could say, he was eaten by the TARDIS, and the TARDIS, it's got the time vortex in it. So when he is resurrected, he's resurrected from inside the TARDIS. So maybe he also sort of has this time vortex power.
It's possible. See that, and that's the whole thing. Is it's unwritten, it's untested. Obviously, you don't want the show to end, so you don't want him to get to life number 13, because when he does, that's it. He can only regenerate 12 times, and once he gets to that final life, you're like, okay, well, he's got to end eventually. So you can write it and say, all right, well, maybe this is just regular regeneration. So if we get to life 13 and we get to a really good ending, we'll end the show. Or you can say, hey, wait, ever since he came back from the Time War, that was regeneration. Eccleston was 1. We're starting over here, people. Tennant was 2. Matt Smith is 3. Also, so the Master was eaten by the TARDIS. Maybe when they resurrected the Master for the Time War, he didn't have any regenerations left. He uses the watch to turn himself human, but when he does so, maybe he steals some regeneration energy of some sort to turn himself into a kid. So now he's Yana, this old man, in the TARDIS, where he has the ability to draw on what he used to be a part of, and that forces him to regenerate. But then, as we're going to get to here in a second, John Sim Master insists he doesn't want to regenerate. Near the end of this season, for reasons that we're going to get to, was shot. And he says, no, I don't have to. I refuse to regenerate. So maybe he is at the beginning. At this point in time, these guys have an infinite number of lives, I think. I think they just keep going.
My other thing is, do you think he chose his... It seems to me like when he switched from Professor Yana to the John Sim Master, that he sort of chose his form. Like, instead, the Doctor doesn't get to choose. It just sort of happens. But it seemed to him like it seemed like the Master was choosing what he was going to look like.
Could be. It is in this show's history that other Time Lords are just that much better at regeneration than the Doctor. Could also be that he doesn't give a rat's ass what he looks like. He could have regenerated. It's like, I don't care what I look like. I'm awesome.
Exactly. And he is a
paradox machine.
So we'll get to the finale here. The sound of drums. This is where this overarching story ends with Mr. Saxon. You find out that Mr. Saxon, is the Master. He's been the Master the whole time, and he's been living there for the last, 18 months or whatever. And the start of the new one is this thing of the drums, which this new sort of overarching storyline, which we'll see later in later seasons, of the drums in his head. They get back. They use Jack's time manipulator thing to get back to.
Master having stolen.
Yeah,
the TARDIS.
The Master steals the TARDIS. Right. They get there. I thought it was kind of funny that Torchwood. There was no. He tried to call them, and there was no reply. It was because the Master sent them to the Himalayas or whatever. Another thing is that there's a car chase in here where the Doctor's like in a car. There's every once in a while the Doctor does something really human, or normal, and it's so weird to see him do it. Like him sitting in a car was probably really one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. And he's like, go drive. It was really funny. It's just that. This show has lots of action in it, but that's just something you usually don't see. Is the Doctor, getting in a car chase and all that.
I'm cool, dudes.
Yeah, the window gets shot in the back, and they're like, oh, yeah.
Sonic Shack.
Yeah, exactly. So what happens is we get a lot of exposition here. The Master talks about how he basically the Time Lords resurrected him for the war. He was a perfect killing machine or fighting machine, and he runs away. And he makes himself human, and he goes through all these things we talked about. Finally, he opens his watch, and he remembers he's the Master, and he steals the TARDIS and all this, and he goes back, becomes Prime Minister of Britain.
All with the plan.
Yes, all with this plan, with these... I can't remember the name of it, but there's these little...
The Toclafane,
which is a made-up word. Apparently, the Doctor's like, "What is he talking about?" These little orbs
from stories when they were kids.
Yeah, these little orbs that float around. And we talked about this earlier, but they also show the Doctor's talking to Jack and Martha as they're sort of in hiding, and they actually show Gallifrey. They show images of it, and we talked about.
The glass dome city.
Is it even close to what it looked like in the old show, or is it good?
You really don't see a lot of outside stuff on the old show of Gallifrey, like I said. But yeah, especially the costuming, the Time Lords wearing with those huge collars with the half circles and everything. That's very old school Doctor Who, and you could just imagine. When they see that domed city and everything, okay, wow, yeah, it was very Romanesque and very, iconic. Yeah. So sure, I'll buy that for $1.
So he says that when he was a kid, they make all the Time Lords look into the untempered schism, and some run away, and some are inspired, and some go mad. So it's implied that the Master goes mad, and he says this is when the drums when it all started. One thing that was interesting about this is the President of the United States comes in and he says UNIT is in charge, which I thought was because I know UNIT is from the old.
UNIT.
It's from the old. Yeah. It's from the old show, which I really don't know that much about it. I know it was kind of like a Torchwood kind of.
UNIT is the United Nations Intelligence Task Force. They were designed to proactively defend the Earth against monsters and aliens. Here's the thing. UNIT is very much like S.H.I.E.L.D. in the Marvel comics, or like any number of the Agents for Control from the old Get Smart show. UNIT soldiers die. They're sort of the meat grinder of the world, Aliens come down, you just get a bunch of guys running in with guns, and they're not going to survive. Yeah. But that's what I love about UNIT, is this really efficient military machine that is just completely inefficient against aliens.
So the end of the first part of this, he turns the TARDIS into a paradox machine to prevent some paradox we don't know yet. There's a part where he offers his wife a jelly baby, which was funny. I actually get the joke now. He turns the Doctor incredibly old. with the Lazarus technology.
He brings in the taco.
He brings in the taco flame. They all come down, and this crazy pop song starts playing.
Here come the drums. Here come the drums.
Yeah. I just was like, oh, okay. This is what we're doing. All right.
Yeah.
I mean,
so basically, he conquers the world.
Yeah, he does. And I gotta say, I really love the idea of the Master, sort of this sort of. I mean, he's got the Daleks. They're sort of his, they're sort of the arch villains. They're, the main villain.
The Daleks, the Cybermen, yeah.
But the Master he's one guy, so it's a little more interesting that there's like.
But one Time Lord can just do so much
damage.
Exactly.
I mean, he's done more damage than the Daleks did so far, through this series, this new series.
So moving on to the last of the Time Lords. The final episode.
Exactly. The one thing that they sometimes shows do, which I don't know why, but it drives me nuts, is they do this thing where it's 1 year later, and I'm like, what? What happened in the? No, why are they? I want everything to be like I just just drives. I don't know why it drives me crazy, but it does.
Well, it's the end of what would be a very long story, because the last of the Time Lords a year later is the final parts of this setup that's happened, and they reference all the stuff that, man, I really kind of want to see all that.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, exactly.
But
that's kind.
So basically,
well, I was just gonna say that's why I think it drives me nuts sometimes. It's like, I want to see what happened, and then they explain it, but then it's like, okay.
So basically, last of the Time Lords, a year later, the Master has invented these shipyards all over the place where they're building these missiles. Master wants to just launch an attack against the universe. Martha Jones has made it back to London with a secret weapon, she calls it, in an attempt to destroy the Master. The Doctor has been turned into a very old being. And it all sort of culminates with what essentially was a plan by the Doctor from the very beginning, was to get everybody in all the pieces in the right place. Very much so a chess maneuver, where the Master believes that he has the ability to set off this attack, and he captures Martha, captures Jack Harkness, captures the family. They're all there on the Valiant, the airship, which is super freaking cool. And it sort of ends with, hey, wait a minute, you completely forgot about something, Master. It's very, very Doctor Who-y Master.
Mm-hmm.
There's something he didn't see, and the Doctor did, and that's why the Doctor would win. Of course, I'm referring to the Archangel Network, the satellites, and that all of humankind, that's what Martha was doing, was spreading a story that at this one date, at this one time, everybody would think Doctor, and because they were thinking of this man, this hero that they had learned about, he would be able to use their psychic network and regenerate himself into himself.
Yeah, and he sort of has this, like, bad wolf type power when he does this. He's like floating, and there's all these cool effects around him, and even like the Master tries to shoot him with a thing, and he's just like, no, he holds out his hand, he's like, and so we also find out that the little balls that were floating around, they were the people from the spaceship, which I'm not sure if I quite understood exactly. Did the people turn themselves into these little balls? Okay.
Yes.
And then the Master went back and found them and brought them.
Well, he found them at the end of the universe, and they were, they were who they were. They realized there was nothing outside of the darkness. Utopia was fake. It didn't save them. And so it's very highly likely the Master convinced them to do this to themselves. But yeah, they did this to themselves, and that's
so he brings them. Yeah, so they come back. The reason they came back was to kill all their ancestors.
Start a new war.
But that would be a paradox, so that's why we have the paradox machine. The TARDIS.
Jack destroys the paradox machine, and
time reverses. So no one remembers any of this.
Time reverses. The whole year undoes itself, so the world's back to...
No one remembers but the main characters.
Of course. And we get one of the saddest moments, I think, in Doctor Who history. Is the Doctor makes the conscious choice, I will keep you, I will watch you, I will make this work. You are my brother, you are the last of my kind, we need each other. And then bang.
Yeah, he gets shot and
by his wife.
And again, superb acting by David Tennant here.
Lieutenant Ensign.
Yeah, just he's like, don't. You can say regenerate. Come on, you can't. It's just no. I refuse. Just two of us now. Just that sort of. Yeah, just really emotional, really powerful.
Well, and the Doctor starts recalling things. Remember the Daleks. Remember this time.
Yeah, one of them says. Remember, he sealed the rift at the Medusa Cascade.
That's during the conversation they had on the phone. Yeah. And we'll get into that again later. There's a couple of things. The Master references the Medusa's Cascade and the rift that was sealed there. He also says, I saw, the Emperor of the Daleks destroyed on the Crucible, which we'll find out more about later. They make a lot of references to the Time War and to the Doctor's past. But the thing that really got me was the Master saying, "Remember when we were younger, we used to run across the fields of Gallifrey, And we'll reference it again later when we get into more stuff about this. But there is a line later on which is, "We used to have estates."
Yeah,
and you really kind of stop for a second and go, maybe these two knew each other. Maybe they were friends. And as they grew older, they grew apart. And that's actually very interesting that, they don't have to be brothers. They don't have to be family. One's not the other's father.
Yeah, I like where there's a part earlier where she goes, "Oh, I thought it was like your secret brother or something."
And he's like,
"You've been watching too much TV."
So he gets shot. He refuses to regenerate. He dies. Very emotional. The Doctor burns him in a traditional Gallifreyan burial, or burning. And then, of course, we get some of the final revelations of the season.
Yeah. Where
Jack says goodbye to everybody, and he, hey, getting a little old. What if I can't die? Will I just keep getting older? And he says, it's vanity. Used to be called the face of Bo.
Yeah, I love that.
And everyone goes, what?
I love that. I think that's great. And they were all like, it couldn't be or whatever, but I think that's...
How else would he have known Yana?
Yeah.
You are not alone.
Yeah.
Maybe it is. Maybe that is his view. Maybe that's not. But I like to, in the back of my mind, I like to think Jack lives that long.
Yeah, I like to think it is. And
then, of course, he drops off Martha.
Yeah, he drops off Martha. She leaves. She says, "You know what? I love you, but you don't love me, and I just can't do it.
Move on.
I can't do it anymore. I move on." Which is kind of interesting, just in the fact that Rose she wouldn't leave at all. She never would leave. And she basically had to be trapped in a parallel universe for her to be gone.
Everyone who touches the Doctor gets burned.
Yeah, and Martha makes a conscious decision, and we'll see later with other companions that the only reason they aren't with the Doctor anymore is because something happens.
And they have to leave.
Have to leave. This with Martha, she decides to leave. But she says, you'll hear from me, mister.
Yeah. And then we get our next what moment?
Right. Yeah. Well, there's that. But I was going to say before that, there's it cuts back to the pyre with the Master.
Oh, with a woman.
A woman picks up a ring or something. And I remember watching this going, what? I think I had to rewind it. I was like, what was that? I don't even remember.
Russell T. Davies talked about that, and he never thought he would go back and write anything about that. He left that as sort of an open plot thread for the next guy or whomever to bring back the Master, and he had no idea who this woman was going to be, and so it was just one of those hey, I can leave it open-ended. So, you guys don't fear, the Master could be back. Uh-huh. I didn't kill him too.
Right.
Destroyed the Cybermen, destroyed the Daleks, got the Master too, and no, he left it wide open that way. Mm-hmm. And that's nice of him. But of course, when we get to the end of all this, we'll reapproach all this stuff again. But, yes, the hand picking up the ring. And my favorite ending to a season. Well, no, because I really love the Donna one. I love Donna. You guys will all come to know how much I think Donna is the best friend of the Doctor.
Yeah.
She should never have left, but... He crashes into the Titanic.
Yep. Which is pretty funny. And that'll set up the Christmas special for Season 4, which we'll talk about next time. But,
and that is Season 3.
That's Season 3. Overall, like a really, really good season.
A lot of action.
A lot of really good episodes. I almost couldn't decide which ones... I almost wanted to watch all of them. They were so good. I was going through, I was like, oh, I gotta watch someone with the rhinos. And then I was like, oh, no, I gotta watch I gotta watch Blink, obviously. And then... I was like, oh, the Shakespeare one's good, and then...
Three-part finale, yeah, and then...
Both
two-parters are so good.
Yeah, and then the one with the watch and everything, they were just so... this season is just so great, and I gotta say, they just introduced something else I just love, the Master. It's just a great thing.
Well, and it's really building on the idea that, and again, the Doctor can't believe it, but... He's not alone, We see a Dalek survive, then the Dalek Emperor survived, and then the Cybermen returned, and then the Cult of Skaro returns, and now the Master is returned. The Time War is not the end. You know? The Doctor sees it as the end, and he feels it as the end. But it's really not the end. Things are slipping through.
Yeah, nothing is definite for sure. Any final thoughts on this season? Any sort of... anything else we can say? It's just... It's just great.
I really love Martha. Freema Agyeman is beautiful. She would have been a great companion to have lasted longer than a season. It is a shame that we really kind of get the one season and then guest starring later on. So many good episodes. Even the bad ones are good. Even stuff like 42 is just like, all right, it was a fun romp with the Doctor Who. I don't know. It was all good. From Smith and Jones until Last of the Time Lords, it keeps you going. It keeps you interested, and that's what you want out of a Doctor Who season. Though you will find me saying nonstop now as seasons go on that they just get better.
Yeah,
Season 4 is my favorite.
Yeah, they do. They get great.
Season 5 is phenomenal.
Season 5 is great, and then the last season was just my mind exploded. I mean, it was so crazy. Any favorite moments from this season?
Yana figuring out who he is. That whole bit, just hearing all these words and these terms in his mind, and when he finally goes to open the watch, you actually hear quotes and lines from the Master. Destroy him, and you will give your power to me. Is an old line from the show.
I heard that. Yeah.
And then, of course, something they recorded specifically for this, which is "Open me, you human fool! Open me and receive my power and my majesty." Just that whole bit. I don't know. Sir Derek Jacobi cannot do wrong. He is a phenomenal, brilliant actor. He's well deserved the title of Sir. And I don't know. I can't praise this season enough. So there are too many good moments to pick, but that's likely it. Is that moment it defines this season for me?
Yeah, I think my favorite moment is just the whole Blink, the whole episode. It's just great. I mean, really, there's a reason it's critically acclaimed. It's one of just the some of the best writing I've ever seen. Some of the just great idea, and it's the thing is, it's not a two-parter or anything. It's just one episode. It's short and sweet and just perfect the way it is, and just
the
amazing.
Music was better in that episode. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably what made it so exciting to watch, too. Yeah, the music.
Yeah, the music was very different. It was nothing like anything else they do for Doctor Who. The music was wholly its own. I don't know. Yeah, you're right. Blink is... Wow.
Right.
Blink's good, too.
Yeah,
the Weeping Angels. We'll see them again.
We sure will. Well, that's it for us this week.
That is definitely we're
going to be cruising,
burning the midnight oil.
Yeah, we are. We're going to be cruising along with these next episodes, so we'll get some of these out coming in soon.
You guys have a great night.
Yeah, you guys we will see you later. Fobo do do.